The sound of a pencil scratching across paper was the only thing filling Lara's apartment. Since the accident, this had become her new way of breathing, writing. Silence, once a restful pause between notes and melodies, now felt like a cold wall separating her from the world. She accepted it because there was no choice, but she never stopped feeling it. Heavy, constant, present. Every morning, Lara repeated the same ritual: warm water with lemon, a few vocal exercises that rarely led anywhere, and long minutes staring at her own reflection, trying to recognize herself. The faint scar on her neck no longer hurt, but it reminded her of every second of what she had lost. Losing her voice was strange, like losing a part of her body no one could see, yet one that held everything she was. On the table, her notebook lay open to the same page for 3 days. One day at a time. It was what she tried to believe, even though every day felt exactly the same. She stood, took a deep breath, and walked to the window. The fog covering the city gave the morning a melancholic, almost familiar aura. Outside, the world kept moving. Inside, everything felt suspended. Yet something inside her refused to die. A faint, silent, stubborn note. Maybe it was hope, maybe it was longing, or maybe just the desire to feel something other than pain. When she closed the window, she had no idea it would be the last day of her unchanging routine. Daniel stepped off the bus, feeling the cold wind rolling in from the coast. It had been years since he last set foot in that town, yet everything looked exactly as he remembered. The narrow streets, the smell of salt in the air, the same silence that now felt heavier than before. He had come because he had no choice. His mother's health had worsened, and his sister needed help. But deep down, he knew he was also returning to face what he had spent so long avoiding. Carrying his worn-out suitcase over his shoulder, he walked past the square where Lara used to sing. A shiver ran through him. He looked away, but the memory surfaced anyway. Her laughter, her light voice, the way she filled the entire space when she performed. Now the square was empty, and so was he. When he arrived at his mother's house, she greeted him with a weak smile. He tried to appear calm, but guilt pulsed beneath his skin. Every corner of that town held memories he had tried to bury. And although he knew seeing Lara again was only a matter of time, he didn't feel ready. As he helped his mother settle, an uneasy feeling washed over him. Something told him the past was closer than he imagined. The light rain turned the streets into small mirrors as Lara left the clinic that afternoon. She walked slowly, protected only by her hood, focused on the rhythmic tapping of the raindrops, a sound she had loved since childhood. Then, as she turned the corner, her body froze before her mind understood why. Daniel was there. He stood holding a black umbrella, tension written across his face like someone who had rehearsed 1,000 conversations and forgotten them all the moment he saw the person he feared meeting most. The shock was mutual. The world seemed to stop breathing. Lara felt a tightness in her chest, painfully familiar. She tried to step aside, but Daniel took a hesitant step forward. "Lara." His voice came out low, almost like a plea. She didn't answer. She simply lowered her gaze, clutched her notebook to her chest, and tried to walk past. He didn't touch her, didn't insist. He just stood there, defeated by the silence she once filled with music. As she finally passed him, she felt their entire past rise around her, as if the rain washed everything except the hurt. The encounter brought no answers, only wounds that had never truly healed. And the news came early that morning. Daniel's mother had fallen ill again. Lara heard it from a neighbor who knocked on her door asking for help. After hesitating for a few seconds, she grabbed her bag and left. Her heart raced not only out of concern, but because she knew the encounter she had been avoiding was now inevitable. When she arrived at the family's house, she found Daniel in the kitchen, pale, sorting through medicines and papers. He looked up, surprised to see her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Only tense breathing filled the room. Lara quickly wrote on her notepad, "Where is she?" Daniel pointed to the bedroom, unable to hide his relief. His mother smiled when she saw Lara and squeezed her hand gently as if nothing had changed. It was impossible to ignore how deeply that woman was woven into her life and her heart. As Lara helped with compresses and dosages, memories pressed against her chest, birthdays, laughter, afternoons filled with music. Each gesture reignited something she had tried to bury. When she stepped out of the bedroom, Daniel was leaning against the doorframe, watching her with a mixture of gratitude and longing. "Thank you," he whispered. Lara only nodded. She knew this was just the beginning. The past was calling. Daniel found the old notebook while searching through a box of scores he hadn't touched in years. The pages were worn at the edges, the ink slightly faded, but he recognized the handwriting instantly, his own, mixed with small notes Lara had added during their late-night rehearsals. At the bottom of one page, circled twice, was the title of the last song they had begun together, but never finished. He hesitated before sitting at the piano. His fingers hovered over the keys, as if the instrument itself carried a memory he wasn't sure he was ready to relive. Still, he pressed the first note. Then another. The melody, quiet at first, unfolded like something waking from a long sleep. Lara, queuing at the doorway after bringing medication for his mother, froze at the sound. She hadn't heard that song since before the accident. A warmth and a sting spread through her chest, the kind of pain que só existe quando a saudade encontra o que perdeu. Daniel didn't notice her at first, but when he finally looked up, the music faded into silence. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither moved. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't a return, but something had shifted, subtle, fragile, real. Lara hadn't meant to look through the old box, but it slipped from the top shelf while ela procurava dos seus cadernos. Papéis se espalharam pelo chão. Recibos, anotações da época dos shows, cartões de visita e mensagens impressas. Mensagens que ela nunca tinha visto. Ajoelhada no chão, o coração apertado, Lara pegou o primeiro papel. Era uma conversa entre Daniel e o antigo empresário dela. A discussão era tensa. Daniel insistia que ela não estava bem o suficiente para cantar naquela noite. O empresário respondia com frases curtas, afiadas, falando sobre contratos, oportunidades e a necessidade de manter a agenda lotada. Lara sentiu as mãos tremerem. Daniel sabia. Ele tentou avisá-la. Mas por que nunca contou? Continuou folheando os papéis, cada um revelando um pouco mais. Mensagens apagadas, horários de chamadas que coincidiam com o dia do acidente, anotações que Daniel fez e nunca mostrou. Uma sensação de traição tomou conta dela, mesmo sem saber exatamente por quê. Era como reviver o acidente, só que dessa vez, emocionalmente. Quando Daniel apareceu à porta para falar com ela, Lara apenas levantou os papéis com a mão trêmula. O silêncio entre eles ficou ainda mais pesado. Ele abriu a boca para explicar, mas hesitou. Essa hesitação doeu mais do que qualquer verdade. Daniel stood by the window, the weight of years pressing against his chest. He had rehearsed that conversation countless times, but nothing prepared him for the way Lara looked at him, eyes steady, firm, asking for answers he had avoided for far too long. When she handed him the small notebook with a single question written in her delicate handwriting, he felt the ground shift beneath him. "What aren't you telling me?" His voice faltered before the truth finally pushed its way out. He confessed that yes, he knew her manager had forced her to sing even when she was sick. He admitted he had tried to warn her. He revealed he had confronted the man, only to be threatened and pushed aside. But he couldn't tell her everything. Not the fear, not the guilt, not the moment he realized he had failed her. Lara listened in silence, her expression slowly dismorning into something between disbelief and heartbreak. She wrote nothing. She didn't need to. When she stepped back, the distance between them felt like an abyss opening. She turned away, tears slipping freely, leaving Daniel alone with the truth he had bled too late. Soisan's seat in Lara's apartment felt smaller that night. She paced back and forth, trying to steady her breathing as Daniel's words echoed in her mind. Part of the truth had been spoken, but his silence about the rest of the past weighed heavier than any revelation. She tried to sing, just one note, a fragile sound, but nothing came out except a broken whisper. Frustration washed over her like a wave, and silent tears streamed down her face. Across town, Daniel sat beside his sleeping mother. Guilt gnawed at his chest more fiercely than ever before. He knew he had failed Lara twice, once in the past, when he didn't fight hard enough to protect her, and now, by offering her only half of the truth. "You need to stop running, Daniel," his mother had told him hours earlier. "The truth only hurts when it arrives too late." He realized he was exactly there, late, broken, trapped by the fear of losing the only true love he had ever known. As the night deepened, both of them faced the same emptiness, each feeling the absence of the other like an open wound that refused to heal. Daniel found Lara where everything had once begun to make sense. The small rehearsal room overlooking the sea, the place where she used to practice before every show. The wooden floor still carried faint marks of their old choreography, and the air held the memory of voices que nunca mais haviam sido ouvidas. Quando ele entrou, Lara levantou os olhos devagar, surpresa, mas não assustada. He didn't try to get closer at first. Instead, he stood by the door, breathing as if gathering all the courage he never had. "I owe you the truth," he said, his voice shaking. All of it. And then it came. Everything he had hidden. How the manager had threatened to destroy his career if he warned her. How he tried, even so. How he was removed from the studio by force on the day of the accident. How guilt had eaten him alive ever since. Lara listened in complete stillness, her eyes shining not with anger, but with the weight de tudo o que nunca soube. When he finally stopped speaking, she stepped forward. Calm. Precise. She wrote a single sentence, no pequeno bloco que sempre carregava. I needed to hear this. Daniel felt something loosen inside him, not relief, but truth finally breathing. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a beginning. The rehearsal hall where Lara used to sing was empty, lit only by the soft light slipping through the tall windows. The scent of old wood and forgotten memories filled the air. She hesitated at the doorway for a few seconds before entering, her heart beating faster than it had in a long time. Daniel was there sitting at the piano, as if he had always belonged to that place. When he saw her, he stood slowly, almost afraid of breaking the delicate moment forming between them. Lara didn't need to speak for him to understand. She walked to the center of the room and opened the notebook where she used to write her melodies. On the marked page there was only one sentence. I'm ready to try. Daniel smiled, a small smile, but full of hope, and sat back at the piano. His fingers played the first notes of the song they had written together years before. The melody filled the hall as if it were bringing back everything that had been lost. Lara felt her throat burn. A mixture of fear, longing, and courage moved through her. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and tried. This time a sound came out, faint, trembling, almost imperceptible, but real. Daniel stopped playing. His eyes filled with tears. Lara touched her neck, surprised and overwhelmed. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was sacred. She had found her first note, and together they found the new beginning they thought they had lost.